Hello everyone, this is Here's Trivia, and today we're continuing the Sima Shi's Coup Let's Talk Lore series with episode 3, titled Li Feng and Zhang Ji. Before we get started, here's the answer to our trivia question from the end of our last episode, and be sure to stay tuned until the end of this episode for a brand new trivia question. Now last time, we ended with the Wei victory at the siege of Hefei over Zhuge Ke's massive 200,000 man army. This much needed win became essential in helping Sima Shi restore and solidify the Wei court's faith in his regency, as after the initial transition period following Sima Yi's death and the embarrassing defeat at the Battle of Dongxing, Sima Shi's grasp over the Wei court was shaky at best. But now with Sima Shi's control stabilizing, it looked like the Sima clan would continue their dominance of the Wei court for years to come, and for the Wei loyalists within the court, this was something that they could not allow. So very soon, an internal political coup with the intentions of assassinating Sima Shi started to form within Wei. The leader of this coup against Sima Shi would be the chief imperial secretariat, Li Feng, and Cao Fang's father-in-law, Zhang Ji. But to fully understand this plot and how these conspirators came together, we have to first dig a little farther into Li Feng and Zhang Ji's past. Li Feng's political career had an interesting start, as he was the son of a mid-level Wei garrison commander. So he grew up in the army camps, but since his father Li Yi was an officer, Li Feng did receive an education. When Li Feng was just 17, his father's unit was stationed in the city of Ye, a major city in the north that was also the seat of Cao Cao's former dukedom turned princedom. By the formation of the Wei dynasty, while Ye was not picked as the official capital, as Luoyang took that crown, Ye was still considered one of the 4 secondary capitals and thus attracted a lot of young talents and scholars hoping to make a name for themselves in monthly recommendation meetups where more experienced and respected scholars judged and graded talents based on character and merit. And those deemed worthy would get a recommendation letter to kickstart hopefully a budding political career. Now, while you might think Li Feng would strive to impress and earn himself a recommendation letter, what he actually did was quite the opposite, as despite his young age, he started to write personal critiques and recommendations judging the other young talents at these recommendation meetups, and his critiques were so pointed and accurate that the more senior judges at these meetups started to recognize his viewpoints on the matter of recommendation, and this naturally made Li Feng instantly famous as young talents flocked to him, often begging him for a glowing review. Worried that his young son would not have the capabilities and merit to back up and handle this early fame, Li Yi ended up banning his own son from leaving the army camps, as Li Feng would spend the next few years locked in to enrich his own education. All the while, this humble and studious act only helped spread Li Feng's fame even more. And we know this because one time, when Emperor Cao Rui was personally interrogating a few captured Wu officers, he asked these Wu officers to name any worthwhile young talents in the kingdom of Wei to see which talents were well known even to the Wu court. And one of the officers replied that he had heard about Li Anguo, which referred to Li Feng, as Anguo was his style name. Now, Emperor Cao Rui had never heard of Li Feng before, even though by this time, Li Feng had already worked his way to become a minor imperial palace secretary. So when Cao Rui asked his attendants if any of them had heard of this Li Anguo before, they informed Cao Rui that Li Anguo, or Li Feng, was one of his imperial palace secretaries, much to Cao Rui's surprise. So naturally, Cao Rui became immensely impressed that one of his minor secretaries was already so famous that even the Wu court had heard about his character and talent. But despite Li Feng's fame, Cao Rui did not promote him much, as Li Feng only went from an imperial palace secretary to an imperial palace guard captain before finally ending up as the minister for Empress Dowager Guo, which was a prestigious but largely powerless position. It was only after Cao Rui's death, when co-regents Cao Shuang and Sima Yi were in power, that Li Feng finally got his chance to shine, as he eventually became a senior imperial secretariat, But with the political battle between Cao Shuang and Sima Yi heating up in the capital, Li Feng, like most other imperial court officials, naturally had to pick a side. However, Li Feng was worried about picking the wrong side and thus ruining his political career, so he tried everything in his power to remain neutral. And this involved him faking illnesses all the time to avoid showing up for work. But there was a rule in the Imperial Secretariat that if you were out sick for 100 days straight, meaning that your illness made you incapable of carrying out your duties, then you would simply be dismissed from your post. To avoid losing his job this way, Li Feng would be out sick for 20 to 30 days at a time, magically recover and come back to work for a few days before catching a new illness that would knock him out for less than 100 days before recovering again for a few more days of work. Now, eventually, everyone caught on to what Li Feng was doing, and there was a popular saying that spread in the imperial court in the later periods of Cao Shuang's regency, mocking Li Feng, that stated, even though Cao Shuang's power was roaring hot like boiling water, and Sima Yi's power was icy cold like leftover food, Li Feng and his brothers were still acting like ghosts of the night, playing both sides. And speaking of Li Feng's brothers, Li Feng had two younger brothers named Li Yi and Li Wei, who were both high-level government officials during this time period. Eventually, after Sima Yi's coup and Sima Yi's death in 251, Li Feng finally got his moment to shine when Sima Shi, after consulting with the imperial court, decided to promote him to the position of Chief Imperial Secretariat. Now, Li Feng was largely picked for seniority and his apparent political neutrality in the past, but by this point, Li Feng had started to see himself as an imperial in-law, as his son, Li Tao, had married Princess Qi, the eldest daughter of the late Emperor Cao Rui, and the older sister of the current Emperor Cao Feng. And thus, because of this, Li Feng aligned himself with Emperor Cao Feng as he started to plot against Sima Shi and looked for co-conspirators at court to help him carry out the assassination. Naturally, Li Feng started by targeting other imperial in-laws who would share his interests in supporting Emperor Cao Feng, as Zhang Ji, the father of Empress Zhang, was quickly identified as a potential ally. Now, Zhang Ji and his clan were originally low-born peasants, but his father, Zhang Ji, same spelling but different tone, worked his way up from being just a mere assistant in a county office to serving over 10 years as the prefect of the Yong and Liang provinces, as he was Guo Huai's predecessor out west, and the one responsible for ending many of the Liang province warlords, including Ma Teng and Ma Chao, in addition to many minor later period Western warlords. Now, Zhang Ji's story is definitely one worth exploring in more detail, as we'll have a future mini-series on this capable Western provinces prefect, but for now, for the purpose of this series, let's return our focus on his son, Zhang Ji. In the year 223, after his father's death to old age, Zhang Ji inherited his father's nobility title, and through it became a county mayor in the county of Wen, near the capital city of Luoyang. As his father had served for over a decade in the western provinces, Zhang Ji decided to write an unsolicited report on stratagems and tactics in regards to how to defend the western provinces against Zhuge Liang's northern expeditions to the imperial court, which caught the eyes of Emperor Cao Rui and the chief imperial secretariat Sun Zi, who collectively agreed to promote Zhang Ji as the lieutenant of the imperial cavalry, or Qi Du Wei, before sending him to the Western Front. After serving in the Western Front, Zhang Ji would return back to the imperial court as a court secretary briefly before becoming the administrator of Dongguan in the Xu province. Now, from historical record, it was clear that Zhang Ji earned to return to a military role as he continued to write unsolicited military tactics to the imperial court in regards to both the kingdom of Wu and the kingdom of Shuhan, while serving as administrator. But in 252, Zhang Ji's military dreams was shattered when his daughter, Lady Zhang, was picked by Emperor Cao Feng as his empress. Because of his ascension now as the imperial father-in-law, Zhang Ji was removed from his administrator position, as the Wei dynasty had rather strict rules about limiting the powers of imperial in-laws and princedoms. Instead, Zhang Ji returned to the capital city of Luoyang and was given a ceremonial position working under the Minister of the Household, a position that Zhang Ji despised. And while working as part of the Nine Minister office, Zhang Ji would also meet with another disgruntled official in Xiahou Xuan, who had returned from his post as the commander of the Wei Western forces due to Sima Yi's summon after the coup, and have been spending his days serving in the ceremonial and powerless position as the Minister of Ceremonies. But before we diverge to other co-conspirators to the plot, we need to first reinforce how Li Feng and Zhang Ji teamed up, as aside from both being imperial in-laws, with Li Feng's son marrying Cao Fang's sister, Princess Qi, and Zhang Ji's daughter being Cao Fang's empress, both of these gentlemen were also born in the Pingyi commandery, as the hometown camaraderie provided a good bond and a baseline level of trust between the two of them, despite the fact that they did not grow up knowing each other as they came from different counties. Lastly, and most importantly, both of them were politically savvy and had ambition for political advancement, which was difficult at the time within the Wei court, as the Sima clan and their close allies dominated the key positions. So in late 253, as Sima Shi solidified his position as regent after Zhuge Ke's defeat at Hefei, Li Feng and Zhang Ji started their plot for a coup to assassinate Sima Shi and overthrow the Sima clan. And to find out the details of their plot, as well as the result and aftermath, come back tomorrow, as we'll conclude this series with episode 4, titled Emperor Cao Mao. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode enough to consider subscribing to the channel for more content on Three Kingdoms history, or simply support the channel by leaving a comment below, or just by hitting the like button. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye!